you've got two friends that are describing, or two people you know, or two acquaintances, and they're describing a certain situation. And person number one is saying, this is what happened. And person number two is saying, no, that's not what happened. This is what has happened. How do you determine which of those two people is telling the truth?
It would depend who could back up their rebuttal with facts.
Okay.
I stick to the facts, and, if they could back that up with facts and, proof, there's proof in the pudding, by all means, then their argument's going to be a lot stronger, in my opinion, than the guy who's just sticking to his opinion.
Okay. Do you think that there are certain things or certain, tools, so to speak, that you can apply to that analysis to determine if let's assume it's a situation where it's not on videotape, or it's not, there's no hard evidence, right? How do you resolve that dispute between two people? It gets more difficult, right?
It does get more difficult when there's no evidence and you're just kind of taking the good word of somebody. I guess character comes into play, and if you have any previous experience with that person, there's that old saying, a spade's a spade. If a guy's a liar, he lies 10 out of 10 times, He might just lie to you again.
Right.
And you'd be naive to think otherwise, I think.
Sure. And so let me and I'm not trying to put you on the spot. This is awkward. But,
yeah.
So as I understand what you're saying is you have a dispute that you're trying to resolve. You're going to look first for, facts and evidence, right? And if those facts and evidence don't exist, you're going to kind of go on your experience and with the person's character.
With the person's character, and if it's quite obvious, the guy's telling me the sky's blue, it's a little bit more believable than a guy telling me, it's red or something,
Okay.
Or just, it just kind of all depends on the situation and the, scenario.
Right. So there are certain things that you can see for yourself.
Absolutely.
And you can make a determination based on that, right?
Yes, I have the ability to think for myself.
Right. Sky's blue.
Sky's blue.
Right. Okay. You understand that in this scenario, it's not a 2-1, it's not a 10-2, it's a unanimous decision that has to be made one way or another. You understand that?
Yes.
Okay. And what if you found yourself in a situation where you were the odd man out? You were the only person, right, that disagreed with the rest of the group. How do you deal with that?
I stick to my guns, and just saying, I'm going to stick to what I believe is right,
okay.
In my heart and what I feel, and that's what I'm going to go with.
Okay. And so, if you were in that situation, would you be willing to listen to what the other people are saying?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Would you be willing to re-examine your personal opinions?
Definitely. I mean, yeah, I'm always open ears, and willing to, look at something again,
Okay.
It's like that saying, measure twice, cut once.
What if you have to measure 10 times?
Measure 10 times.
What about 100 times?
Measure 100 times, get it right the first time.
Okay. Can you think of a situation, again, in your personal or professional life where you were just 100% convinced of something, and then later it turns out you were wrong?
I think, if I could have a moment to just think.
Yeah, take your time.
I can't think of an exact moment, but there has been times in life where, I've made a judgment and I was wrong, based on facts.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's an honest answer. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, that occurs in day-to-day life. Sometimes you're not always going to be right.
Right. Okay. And are you able to acknowledge when you're not right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, follow-ups on your questionnaire, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
All right. So I'm going to skip forward a little bit and you referenced it in your in an earlier answer you gave me too. You have some training in the martial arts, kickboxing?
Yes, sir. I've done a little bit of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I've done some Muay Thai, some striking.
Okay. And how long have you practiced that?
I did it for about a year, mostly of the striking. Did some Jiu-Jitsu for about 2 months.
Okay. And did you achieve a certain level?
I was about one test away from getting my green sash. I was orange sash in Muay Thai. And then with the whole COVID thing that happened, when it took like full effect towards January or so, I became full-blown to working instead of attending the gym. And I just never went back to accomplish that.
Okay. Is it something you want to go back to?
Yeah, definitely. It's a good hobby, and I enjoy it.
Okay. So, reflecting back to an earlier question, the questionnaire asks you what you had heard or knew about the facts of this particular case. And something in your response struck me is you said the cop performed an illegal tactic with his knee across the neck.
Yes, in the video it looks like his knee is a little high. So with that being said, isn't the tactic supposed to be knee across like the shoulder blades?
So that's obviously one of the things that we're going to be discussing throughout the course of the trial, right?
Yes, sir.
So, but you used an interesting word in your response, which was an illegal move, right? What standard would you be applying in terms of the legality of a move?
Well, I guess the black and white fine print of, I guess, what they, to my knowledge, what would be in their, well, I don't want to call it a handbook or their training.
Okay.
From what I was just seeing in the news and stuff, and then just seeing, the video from the angle that was showed on the news, it does look a little rough, in my opinion.
Okay, and I appreciate your honesty, okay? So, I guess my question is that you will hear evidence, if you are seated on this jury, you will hear evidence from people in the Minneapolis Police Department about their training and their train their officers. That may be different from your personal training.
Oh yeah, if they could educate me on what the fine print is in a situation like that, I'd be open ears to hearing that, and I would feel more educated myself, and that might change my opinion on what occurred that day.
Okay. So I want to make sure that what you would apply would be the Minneapolis Police Department's standards versus your personal experience being trained in jiu-jitsu. You would do that?
I would do that.
Okay. You said in your response that it may change your opinion of what happened. It's fair to say you formed an opinion of what happened here in this case.
There is a little bit of opinion. I believe it could have been handled differently. I believe the outcome could have happened a lot more. There could have been a different outcome, in my opinion.
Okay. The questionnaire asks for your perspective on Mr. Chauvin, and you indicated it was a very negative opinion.
I would say what I've seen, yes, I formed I wouldn't say very negative, but I would say the way he handled that situation struck me as very negative.
Okay.
But like I said, if I'm, more evidence and I'm educated more on the situation, I would feel better myself too about the opinion I'm creating of him, because I know nothing about this man.
Okay. Well, what you wrote in your questionnaire, and I understand I'm not trying to trick you, but what you wrote in your questionnaire is that they took the law into their own hands.
Well, yeah, if a guy's, sitting there telling you can't breathe, and, you decide, a man ultimately lost his life that day. And so, earlier I was hearing that you have the right to, a trial and stuff. He didn't make his, court date.
Okay.
His fate was decided on the street that day, unfortunately. due to either, the certain circumstances. I'm not too sure of the evidence and everything, but, ultimately his fate was decided that day.
So you formed an opinion as to the guilt or innocence of Mr. Chauvin at this point?
No.
Okay. And you're telling us that you're willing to examine all of the evidence in this case, right?
I think I'd feel a lot better about the whole situation if I was to examine more evidence and become more educated on the situation, because as of right now, I do have sort of a negative opinion on what happened that day. But like you said, there's going to be times in life where you are wrong, and so you face the music, and I'd be.
So if after reviewing all of the evidence, you formed the opinion that what happened that day was not a crime, you could vote not guilty?
If the facts, the evidence show that what he did that day was proper policing, and there was other circumstances that caused that fatal incident, and there's other things that tied into it, and that was the sole reason that that man lost his life on the street that day, and the evidence backs and supports it, I'd be willing to support what's right at the end of the day. But, if it's swayed the other way, and the evidence shows that there was improper policing, and that was the sole reason that he didn't see his court date, what's right is right, and what's wrong is wrong.